AITA for exposing mom's secret will when my family tried selling her house at the funeral? My name is Nora. I'm 34 years old and I live in a small brick ranch house just outside Dayton, Ohio. The kind of house where the furnace rattles every November, and the neighbor across the street can tell when you forgot trash day because your cans are still sitting by the garage at noon. I work as a billing coordinator for a physical therapy clinic. That sounds more official than it feels. Mostly it means I spend my days explaining deductibles to confused patients, arguing with insurance portals, and eating lunch at my desk while someone's claim sits on hold. But the job paid my bills, gave me health insurance, and most importantly let me shift my schedule when my mom got sick. For the last 2 years of her life, I wasn't just her daughter. I was her ride to appointments, her medication chart, her grocery list, her emergency contact, her insurance translator, and the person who knew which pharmacy tech would actually answer the phone after 4 p.m. According to my family, I was also supposed to do all of that quietly, smile when they criticized me, and never act like I had earned the right to be tired. My mother's name was Marlene. She was 66, stubborn in a soft way, and could stretch one pot of chicken soup across 3 dinners without making anyone feel poor. Before she got sick, she kept the house spotless, planted marigolds along the front walkway, and drank coffee on the back porch in a faded blue robe even when it was too cold to be pleasant. She used to say, "A house remembers who takes care of it." At the time I thought she meant dusting baseboards and cleaning gutters. I didn't understand until much later. Mom's illness didn't arrive like a dramatic movie scene. It started with little things. She forgot appointments. She got tired walking from the kitchen to the mailbox. She stopped making her Sunday meatloaf because standing too long made her dizzy. Then came doctor visits, test results, specialists, new medications, side effects, hospital discharge packets with highlighted sections, and a pill organizer with tiny compartments that somehow became the center of our lives. I still had my apartment then, a small 1-bedroom above a hair salon, but I started staying at Mom's house 3 or 4 nights a week. Then 5. Then almost every night. Her medication schedule was taped inside the kitchen cabinet because she hated seeing it out in the open. There was a shower chair in the bathroom, a heating pad folded on her favorite recliner, and a handwritten appointment calendar on the fridge full of circles, arrows, and my notes in blue ink. Derek, my older brother, lived 25 minutes away. He was 39, married to a woman named Lauren, and always described himself as slammed or buried or running on fumes, even though he still found time to post pictures from breweries on weekends. Calvin, my younger brother, was 31 and lived across town with 2 roommates. He wasn't cruel exactly. He was slippery. He would agree with you privately, then disappear when agreeing required action. My Aunt Renee, Mom's younger sister, lived in Kettering and had opinions about everything from medication timing to how often I should wash Mom's sheets. She came by with advice, never with groceries. She used words like family unity and respect whenever she meant do what I say. At first, I really believed they would help once things became serious. Derek promised he would take Mom to appointments on Fridays. "I got you," he said in the family group chat. "Just send me the dates." I sent the dates. The first Friday he had a work emergency. The second, Lauren's car had to go into the shop. The third, he said he'd forgotten he had a meeting, but he could maybe swing by later. He did swing by later. He stood in the kitchen for 12 minutes, drank half a bottle of Mom's iced tea from the fridge and said, "You're better at this stuff anyway." Calvin said he could handle grocery runs. "Just text me the list," he said. I texted him the list. He replied with a thumbs up. For hours later he wrote, "Car's acting weird. Can you do this one? I'll get the next." There was always a next one and he never got it. Renee called me one Tuesday morning while I was in the Kroger parking lot with Mom's prescriptions in my purse and a receipt for soup, bananas, and unscented laundry detergent tucked beside them. "You really need to keep her eating more protein," she said. "I know," I said, pressing the phone between my shoulder and ear while loading bags into the trunk. And she sounded down when I talked to her. "Are you getting her outside?" "I'm trying." "You can't let her just sit in that chair all day, Nora." I remember looking at the pharmacy pickup slip in my hand and feeling something hard settle in my chest. "Renee," I said, "you're welcome to come take her for a walk." There was a little silence. "Well, I would, but Wednesdays are terrible for me." "It's Tuesday." I mean this week in general. That was how it always went. Everyone cared in theory. In practice it was me. Mom noticed more than I wanted her to. She noticed when Derek didn't show. She noticed when Calvin's car trouble somehow never kept him from concerts or poker nights. She noticed when Renee called to judge but never stayed long enough to wash a dish. One evening, I found Mom sitting at the kitchen table with her tea untouched in front of her. "You don't have to look so sad," I told her, trying to sound light. She rubbed her thumb along the rim of the mug. Her fingers had gotten thinner. "I'm not sad for me." I sat across from her. "Then who?" She looked toward the hallway, where the floor always squeaked near the bathroom. "You." I laughed because I didn't want to cry. "Don't waste pity on me. I'm very durable." Mom gave me that look mothers give when they know you're lying and they're too tired to call it out. "You shouldn't have to be durable all the time." The fall happened in late February, on a night so cold the windows had frost around the edges. I was rinsing a bowl in the kitchen when I heard a thump from the bathroom. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. I ran down the hallway and found Mom on the floor, the bath mat twisted under one foot, her face pale and embarrassed. "I'm okay," she said immediately. She was not okay. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone, dialing 911. While we waited, I called Derek. He answered on the fourth ring. "What's up?" "Mom fell. I called an ambulance. Can you come?" There was noise behind him, voices and music. "Now." "Yes, now." He sighed. Not panic. Not fear. A sigh like I had asked him to move furniture. "I'm at this work thing. I can leave if it's like really bad, but..." "She's on the bathroom floor, Derek." Okay. Text me what hospital." Called Calvin next. "Can you meet me at the ER? My car's been making that grinding sound again. Get an Uber." "I don't know if I can afford that right now." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Renee called after Derek texted the group chat. "What happened?" she demanded. "She fell in the bathroom." "How? Were you not nearby?" I stood in the doorway watching the ambulance lights flash red across the front window. "I was in the kitchen." "Well, she shouldn't be alone in the bathroom if she's unsteady." The paramedics were asking Mom questions. I had my coat half on, my shoes untied, and my heartbeat was in my throat. "Renee," I said quietly, "I can't do this right now." At the ER, the waiting room smelled like stale coffee and floor cleaner. I signed paperwork with hands that still hadn't stopped trembling. Mom kept apologizing, which made it worse. Derek texted at 10:42 p.m. "Keep me posted. Long night here." Calvin texted a sad face emoji. Renee wrote, "We need to discuss whether Nora can handle this level of care." I stared at that message until the words blurred. Mom was awake when I came back into the room. Her hair was flattened on one side, and there was a hospital blanket pulled up to her chest. "Did they come?" she asked. I didn't answer fast enough. She closed her eyes. That was the night something changed in her. Not loudly. She didn't rant or cry. But after that, she watched everyone more carefully. So did I. A few weeks later, Derek stopped by while Mom was recovering in her recliner. He brought a paper bag with 2 muffins and acted like he had performed an act of service worthy of a plaque. "Blueberry," he said, setting one on the side table. "Your favorite." Mom smiled politely. "It's cranberry," I said. Derek looked at the muffin. "Same family." It would have been funny if I weren't so tired. He wandered around the living room, looking at things like he was seeing them for the first time. The framed school photos. Dad's old clock, even though Dad had been gone for 12 years. The worn patch in the carpet near Mom's chair. The crack in the plaster above the doorway. Then he said, "Is this place paid off?" Mom's eyes shifted toward him. I was standing by the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of water. "What?" I asked. "The mortgage," Derek said. "I'm just asking. You know, practically." Mom's hand tightened on the arm of the recliner. "It's almost paid," I said. Derek nodded slowly. "Houses around here are going for more than people think. Even old ones. Market's weird." "It's Mom's home," I said. I didn't say it wasn't. Don't be sensitive. Mom didn't say anything for the rest of his visit. That was the first time I heard him talk about the house like it was separate from her. Not the place where she kept recipe cards in a drawer. Not the porch where she drank coffee. Not the hallway where she had just fallen. An asset. That was the word he used later. Calvin brought it up next, but in his usual softer, less accountable way. You ever look up comps? He asked one evening over text. Comps? Comparable houses, he replied. Just curious. Why are you curious? No reason. Derek mentioned it. I mean, eventually we'll all have to deal with stuff. Mom was still alive. She was asleep in the next room with a heating pad on her knees. I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. Finally I wrote, eventually is not tonight. He sent back, you don't have to get defensive. Renee was more polished about it. At Sunday dinner, which I had cooked because everyone agreed it would be nice for Marlene, and then arrived empty-handed, she dabbed her mouth with a napkin and said, it's not morbid to plan. Families fall apart when people avoid practical conversations. Derek nodded. Calvin stared into his mashed potatoes. Mom looked smaller at the head of the table, wrapped in a cardigan, her plate barely touched. What practical conversation? I asked. Renee gave me a patient smile, the kind that made my skin itch. The future of the house. The estate. Fairness. I put my fork down. Can we not do this over dinner? Nora, Derek said, nobody's attacking you. That's usually what people say right before they attack me. Mom coughed and the conversation stopped, but not because they felt ashamed. It stopped because they didn't want to look bad in front of her. After they left, I washed dishes while Mom sat at the kitchen table. The yellowed cabinet handles looked dull under the overhead light. Outside, a dog barked somewhere down the block. I'm sorry, she said. I turned off the faucet. For what? For them. You don't have to apologize for grown adults. She looked at the table. Maybe I do. The first bank alert came on a Thursday afternoon. Mom's phone buzzed while she was asleep in the recliner. I wasn't trying to snoop. I picked it up because I thought it might be a medication reminder. It was a purchase alert from a gas station across town. $68.14. Mom hadn't driven in months. I frowned and checked the time. The purchase had gone through 16 minutes earlier. When she woke up, I asked gently, did you order anything? Or give someone your card? She looked at the phone and went still. No. Maybe it's fraud. I can call the bank. Her face changed in a way I didn't understand yet. Not surprised. Tired. Not today, she said. Mom, if someone has your card. I said not today. Her voice wasn't sharp exactly, but it had a door in it. Closed. Locked. Over the next 2 weeks I noticed more. A steakhouse charge on a night Mom ate toast and applesauce. An online electronics order. A gas station near Derek's office. A charge at a sporting goods store. I printed the statements at work during my lunch break and sat in my car staring at them, my sandwich untouched in my lap. That night, I found Mom at the kitchen table with one of the statements in front of her. She had folded it into thirds and unfolded it again. Her tea sat untouched, the string hanging over the side of the mug. Mom, I said softly. She didn't look up. How long have you known? Her mouth trembled once, then steadied. Long enough. I sat across from her. Is it Derek? She closed her eyes. That was answer enough. He said he was picking things up for me, she said. At first he did. Groceries. A prescription once. Then I noticed other things. I asked him and he told me he must have mixed up cards. Then it happened again. I felt heat rise in my face. How much? I don't know exactly. Mom. I didn't want you carrying one more thing. I pressed my palms flat on the table because I wanted to stand up, drive to Derek's house, and ask him how he could use our sick mother's debit card for steak dinners while I was counting her pills under a kitchen light. But Mom looked exhausted, and anger would only make her responsible for calming me down. So I stayed seated. There's more, she said. I didn't want there to be more. Renee wanted me to add her to one of my accounts. She said it would be easier if something happened. I laughed once without humor. Easier for who? Mom looked toward the back door. I asked her that. What did she say? That I was letting you isolate me. The room went quiet except for the refrigerator humming. "I'm not isolating you," I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. Mom reached across the table. Her hand was cool over mine. "I know." 2 days later, she asked me to drive her to an attorney's office. I thought she meant eventually. She meant that morning. Anthony's office was in a low beige building near a dentist and an insurance agency. He was 45, calm, and wore a navy tie with tiny silver dots. Not flashy. Not warm in a fake way. He spoke to Mom directly, not over her, which immediately made me trust him more than half the doctors we dealt with. He already knew her. That surprised me. "You've met before?" I asked. Mom adjusted her purse in her lap. "Twice." Anthony gave me a polite nod, but he didn't explain anything until Mom said, "She needs to know." He pulled a folder from his desk. "Your mother has been very clear about her wishes," he said. I remember the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I remember Mom's breathing beside me. I remember a tiny scratch on the edge of Anthony's desk and focusing on it because I had a feeling the floor was about to move. "What wishes?" I asked. Mom looked at me. "The house." Anthony explained it carefully. "The deed. The transfer on death paperwork. The county recording. The way ownership would pass outside the usual estate process if everything was filed correctly." He used plain words and paused often so Mom could ask questions. She had already signed part of it. That day there were final documents to confirm, review, and record. I stared at her. "Mom, you don't have to." "Yes," she said. "I do. This is your house. And I'm deciding what happens to it." My throat tightened. Derek and Calvin will lose their minds. Mom's expression changed. For a second, she looked less like a sick woman in a cardigan, and more like the mother who once made a mechanic redo a repair because he tried to overcharge her. "I am not rewarding the people who waited for me to die." I had no answer to that. At the county recorder's office, the clerk barely looked up. The lights were too bright. The chairs were uncomfortable. A man behind us complained about a parking ticket. It all felt too ordinary for something that would change my life. Mom signed slowly but clearly. Her hand shook near the end and I wanted to help, but Anthony gently shook his head. "She needs to do it herself," he said. So I watched her finish her name. Marlene Lane. Afterward, in the car, she leaned back against the seat and closed her eyes. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. I turned the key but didn't start the engine. "No. I'm scared. Of them." I nodded. She opened her eyes. "Don't let their noise confuse you." A week later, she gave me a letter. It was in a white envelope with my name written on the front in her careful handwriting. "Nora." No decoration. No dramatic message. "Don't read it until you need it," she said. "When will I need it?" "You'll know." I put it in the fireproof box under her bed with the deed copies, bank records, insurance papers, and the folder Anthony had given us. I didn't sleep much after that. Mom declined through spring. Some days were almost normal. She would sit on the porch and tell me which neighbor had let their lawn go too long. Other days she barely spoke. Once, while I was helping her sort laundry, she said, "I wish I had made them help you." "You couldn't make them." I could have stopped excusing them. I folded one of her nightgowns. "You did what moms do. You hoped your kids were better than they were acting." She smiled faintly. "That sounds nicer than foolish." "It can be both." She laughed quietly, and for a moment the house felt like it used to. The call came in June. She had gone back into the hospital after a bad week. I had spent the night in a chair beside her bed, then gone home at dawn to shower and change before work. I was in the driveway with my hand on the car door when the hospital number appeared on my phone. I don't remember every word. I remember the nurse's voice being gentle. I remember saying, "Okay," too many times. I remember sitting in the driveway unable to open my car door for several minutes. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Alvarez, came over with chicken noodle soup in a plastic container that afternoon. I hadn't called her. She just knew. "Oh, honey," she said and hugged me hard enough that I finally cried. Derek arrived that evening with Lauren. Calvin came an hour later. Renee came with a folder of printed checklists she said she found online. The house filled with people and somehow felt emptier. For the first 2 days, everyone behaved just well enough that I questioned myself. Derek hugged me and said, "You did good, Noor." Calvin cried in the kitchen and told me he wished he'd been around more. Renee touched Mom's chair and said, "My sister deserved more time." I wanted to believe grief had softened them. Then came the memorial luncheon. It was in the church basement under yellow lights, with folding chairs and paper plates and relatives balancing ham, casseroles and store-bought rolls on their knees. The coffee was weak. Someone had brought a sheet cake with "Rest in Peace Marlene" written in blue icing. People told me Mom had been kind, funny, tough, a good neighbor, a good sister, a good woman. I held myself together through all of it. Then I saw Derek near the far wall, talking to Calvin in a low voice. He had one hand in his suit pocket, and when he pulled it out, a business card came with it. A real estate agent's card. I saw the little house logo in the corner. Derek tapped the card with 2 fingers and said, not quietly enough, "We should move fast while the market's good." Something inside me went very still. Not loud, not explosive. Still. Renee noticed me looking and walked over with a paper cup of coffee. "Nora," she said, voice soft and public, "your mother would want fairness." I looked at the cake. The blue icing had stained the plastic knife. She would want people to finish chewing before discussing her house. Renee's smile tightened. "Grief makes people sharp." "No," I said. "Disrespect does." She stepped back like I had slapped her, though I hadn't raised my voice. Calvin avoided my eyes for the rest of the luncheon. That night the group chat started. "Derek, we need to talk about next steps." Renee, "It's better to handle these things before resentment builds." Calvin, "Yeah, probably good to know what the plan is." Me, "We can discuss this with the attorney." Derek, "Why do we need an attorney to talk about Mom's house?" Renee, "Nora, please don't make this difficult." Derek, "Nobody is trying to take anything from you, but you lived there rent-free while Mom was sick, so let's not act like you got nothing." I stared at that message in bed with the lamp on and Mom's house quiet around me. Rent-free. I thought about the nights I slept sitting up because Mom was afraid. The lunch break spent on hold with insurance. The Kroger receipts. The pharmacy slips. The alarms on my phone. The way I had learned to hear the difference between Mom shifting in bed and Mom needing help. Rent-free. I took screenshots. Beth came over the next day. Beth had been my best friend since community college. She worked as a paralegal, had a sharp bob haircut, and could make a person feel both comforted and cross-examined in the same sentence. She sat at the kitchen table while I made coffee I didn't want. "Show me everything," she said. I handed her my phone. She scrolled through the group chat, her eyebrows climbing. "Oh, they're bold. That's one word. Nora." I looked at her. Do not argue with people who are creating evidence against themselves. I almost laughed. They're my brothers. They're adults pressuring you and writing 2 days after your mother's memorial. I sat down across from her. "I keep feeling like I'm doing something wrong." Beth softened. "That's because they trained you to think peace means giving in." I looked toward the hallway. "I haven't told them about the deed." Good. Good. Talk to Anthony first. Confirm everything. Document every message. Don't meet them alone if you can avoid it. They'll say I'm hiding things. They're already saying that. She was right. Anthony saw me 3 days later. I brought the folder Mom had kept, the envelope with my name on it still sealed, and printed bank records. His office felt colder without Mom beside me. He reviewed everything carefully. The deed, the recording, the letter from his file, the bank documentation Mom had gathered, notes from their meetings. "Your mother was very clear," he said. I looked down at my hands. "Can they fight it?" "People can try many things," he said. "That doesn't mean they have a strong position. The house transferred according to the documents. Do not sign any informal agreement. Do not accept verbal arrangements. If they want to communicate about legal matters, they can go through me." I nodded. He paused. "And Nora?" "Yes. You are allowed to protect yourself before they approve of how you do it." That almost broke me. I went home and finally opened Mom's letter. I sat in her room on the edge of the bed. The curtains were half open. Dust floated in the afternoon light. The envelope shook in my hands. Her handwriting was slower than it used to be, but every word was legible. Nora, if you are reading this, then I am gone and they have probably started talking about the house. I am sorry for that. I should have protected you sooner from the kind of family love that only shows up when there is something to gain. You gave me time, care, patience, and dignity when I needed all four. You did not do it for money. That is exactly why I trust you with this home. I know about Derek and the card. I know about Renee and the bank account. I know Calvin stayed quiet because quiet was easier. I know who helped me live and I know who waited for me to die. The house is yours because I chose that. Not because you asked. Not because you manipulated me. Because I am still your mother. And this is one of the last ways I can take care of you. Do not let them turn your grief into a negotiation. Love, Mom. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope because if I held it any longer, I was going to fall apart. The next problem came with the spare key. It was a Saturday morning. I had barely slept. I was standing in the kitchen barefoot, waiting for the coffee maker to finish, when I heard the front door handle jiggle. Then a key turned. Or tried to. I froze. The old deadbolt stuck sometimes, so it took a second. Then I heard Derek mutter from the porch. Come on. I walked to the door and opened it before he could try again. He stood there in jeans and a polo, holding the old spare key Mom used to keep under a ceramic frog before I convinced her that was a terrible idea. Behind him, Calvin sat in his car at the curb, pretending to check his phone. What are you doing? I asked. Derek looked annoyed, not embarrassed. I was coming in. Why? To look at some of Mom's papers. You don't come into this house without asking. He laughed once. This house? Nora, don't start. I stood in the doorway. You need to leave. His face hardened. You're making this ugly. No, I said. You came to my door with a key you no longer have permission to use. He leaned slightly closer. Your door. There it was. I didn't explain. I didn't reveal anything. I just looked at him until he stepped back. After he left, I called a locksmith. The man arrived 2 hours later with a tool bag and changed the deadbolt while I stood barefoot in the hallway, arms crossed, feeling strange and shaky and relieved all at once. The receipt went into the fireproof box with everything else. That evening, Calvin texted me privately. Calvin. Derek shouldn't have done that. Me. Then say that in the group chat. He didn't respond for 40 minutes. Calvin. I just don't want this to turn into a fight. Me, it already is. You're just trying not to be seen holding a side. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. Renee took it public 2 days later. She posted on Facebook without using my name, which somehow made it worse. Some people forget that grief belongs to the whole family, not just the person who controls the keys. My sister believed in fairness. I pray her children remember that before outsiders have to get involved. Outsiders, meaning attorneys, or anyone who might stop her from controlling the story. Relatives commented little hearts and, so sorry you're dealing with this. One cousin wrote, money makes people show their true colors. Another said, your sister would be heartbroken. I screenshotted all of it. Beth came over that night with takeout containers, and a look on her face that said she was ready to commit a social crime on my behalf. Don't comment, she said before I spoke. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it. I wrote 17 replies in my head. That's allowed. Posting is not. We ate lo mein at the kitchen table. I could hear Mom's wind chimes outside, soft and uneven. Beth pointed her fork at me. They want a reaction. Don't give them one. Give them a meeting. I hate meetings. You work in billing. That's why I hate meetings. She smiled a little. But she was right. I texted the group chat the next morning. Me. We can meet at Mom's house on Thursday at 6. Anthony will not be present, but I will be following his guidance. Anything involving legal claims can go through him afterward. Derek responded in less than a minute. Derek. Legal claims? This is family. Renee. Your tone is disappointing. Calvin. Thursday works. Derek. I'm bringing some numbers so we can be productive. Numbers. That word told me exactly what kind of meeting he intended to have. On Thursday, I left work early. I changed out of my clinic blouse into jeans and a plain black sweater. I printed copies of the deed, the county recording confirmation, bank records, selected group chat messages, screenshots of Renee's post, and Mom's letter. I put the originals back in the fireproof box. Beth insisted on coming, but I told her to wait outside. I don't want them saying I ambushed them. She sat in her car in the driveway anyway, engine off, phone in hand. Text me a period if you need me to knock, she said. A period? Fastest punctuation. I almost smiled. At 5:58, Calvin arrived. At 6:04, Renee arrived with a folder. At 6:11, Derek walked in without apologizing for being late. He had the real estate agent's card clipped to a stack of papers. No one sat in Mom's recliner. I don't know if that was respect or superstition. Derek took the couch. Renee sat beside him. Calvin sat in the wooden chair near the window and bounced his knee. I sat across from them in Mom's armchair. Not the recliner. The smaller one with the faded floral cushion. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Derek cleared his throat. Okay. I think we all know why we're here. I'd like to hear you say it, I said. He frowned. To figure out the house. Renee leaned forward. And to restore some family unity before this gets worse. I looked at Calvin. He rubbed his palms on his jeans. I just think everyone wants clarity. Derek spread his papers on the coffee table, like he was leading a business presentation. I talked to a real estate agent. Informally. Houses in this area are moving decently. Not top dollar because the place needs work, but still enough that if we list quickly, we avoid carrying costs. Carrying costs? I repeated. Utilities, taxes, maintenance. He looked around. This is an asset, Nora. I felt Mom's letter in the folder beside me like a pulse. It was Mom's home. And now Mom's gone, he said. Renee made a soft sound. Derek. What? We're all thinking it. No, I said. You're saying it. His jaw tightened. You've been living here like it's yours. I held his gaze. Renee stepped in, voice smooth. Nora, no one denies you helped your mother. But helping someone does not mean you get to decide everything afterward. Your brothers have rights too. Calvin nodded weakly. I mean, yeah, it should be fair. I looked at him. Do you believe that? He looked down. Derek leaned forward. You got free rent for playing nurse. So maybe don't act like you're the only one who lost something. The room changed after that. Not visibly. The lights didn't flicker. No thunder outside. The neighbor's dog barked once and stopped. But inside me, something that had been bending for years finally refused. I didn't yell. I opened the folder. Say that again, I said. Derek blinked. What? What you just said. Say it again clearly. He looked uncomfortable for the first time. I said you benefited too. No. The other part. Renee's eyes narrowed. Nora, don't twist. I looked at Derek. Playing nurse. Calvin whispered. Derek, come on. Derek sat back. You know what I meant. Yes, I said. I do. I placed the first document on the coffee table. This is the transfer on death deed Mom signed before she passed. No one moved. I placed the second page beside it. This is the county recorder confirmation. Renee's face went blank. Derek stared at the papers. What is this? He said. I just told you. No, that's not. She couldn't just. She could, I said. She did. Renee reached for the paper then stopped like touching it might make it real. When? She asked. Months ago. Her voice sharpened. When she was sick? When she was mentally clear, legally advised, and very aware of what she wanted. Derek stood up. You manipulated her. I looked up at him. Sit down. He laughed, but it came out thin. You don't get to tell me. Sit down or leave. For a second I thought he might keep standing just to prove he could. Then he sat. I placed the bank records on the table next. These are the charges Mom found. Derek's color changed. I didn't list them dramatically. I didn't need to. Gas station. Restaurant. Online order. Sporting goods. Dates. Amounts. Mom knew, I said. Calvin looked at Derek. Is that true? Derek snapped. Stay out of it. That's not an answer, Calvin said, but quietly, like he was afraid of being heard. Renee lifted her chin. This is inappropriate. Your mother would never want private family matters spread out like this. I took out another page. She also knew you pressured her to add you to her bank account. Renee's mouth opened, then closed. I was trying to help. No, I said. You were trying to get access. That is a disgusting accusation. It's Mom's accusation. The room went silent. Finally, I took out the letter. I didn't hand it to them. I held it because it was not theirs to touch. Mom wrote this for me. I'm going to read one part. My voice almost broke, but I steadied it. I know who helped me live, and I know who waited for me to die. Calvin stopped bouncing his knee. Derek looked at the floor. Renee's face flushed red. That's cruel, she whispered. No, I said. What happened to her was cruel. This was clear. Derek rubbed both hands over his face. Look, if she was upset about the card, we could have talked about it. You did talk about it. You told her you mixed up cards. It was a mistake. Several times. He didn't answer. Renee stood. I will not sit here and be insulted by my niece in my sister's house. I stood too. My house. The words landed hard. For a moment saying them hurt. Not because they were untrue, but because I wished I had never needed to say them. Derek pointed at me. You think this is over because you have papers? I know it is. We can get a lawyer. Then have your lawyer contact Anthony. Renee gathered her purse. Your mother was vulnerable. My mother was tired, I said. Not confused. Calvin finally spoke. Nora, I didn't know about the card. I looked at him. No. But you knew I was alone. You knew Derek wasn't showing up. You knew Renee was pushing. You knew Mom needed help. You texted me privately that Derek was wrong, then sat here and said nothing until the money disappeared. His face crumpled a little. I'm sorry. I believe you're sorry right now. He flinched. Derek grabbed the real estate card from the coffee table and shoved it into his pocket. You're really going to cut us out? I thought about Mom in the ER. Mom at the kitchen table. Mom signing her name under fluorescent lights. Mom writing that letter with hands that were losing strength but not clarity. You cut yourselves out, I said. Derek looked like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing useful left for him to say. Renee moved toward the hallway. I stepped aside and opened the front door. I'm asking you to leave now. If you come back without permission, I'll treat it as trespassing. If there are more threats, Anthony will receive them. And Derek, if you keep pushing, I will report every unauthorized charge Mom documented. His eyes flicked toward the window, toward the driveway, where Beth's car sat visible under the maple tree. For the first time all evening, he looked nervous. You do that to your brother? I looked at him for a long second. No. I do that for my mother. They left without another word. Calvin paused on the porch. I really am sorry, he said. I wanted to comfort him. That old instinct rose up automatically, like a hand reaching for a familiar light switch. Instead, I said, then be sorry without asking me to make you feel better. He nodded and walked to his car. When the door closed, my legs felt weak. I texted Beth a period. She came in so fast I almost laughed. Are you okay? I stood in the living room, surrounded by papers and silence. I think so. She looked at the coffee table. Did they see everything? Enough. Beth pulled me into a hug, and I cried in a way I hadn't cried since the hospital call. Not pretty, not quiet, but it was different from the grief before. It wasn't just losing Mom. It was letting go of the fantasy that the rest of them would become better if I explained myself clearly enough. The fallout came quickly. Lauren called me 2 days later. Derek must not have told her much, because her voice was tight and confused. Nora, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Okay. Did Derek use your mom's card? I closed my eyes. Yes. Silence. Do you have proof? Yes. She exhaled shakily. He told me your mom gave him permission. She didn't. Lauren didn't cry, but her voice changed. Can you send me what you have? I can send the records that involve the charges. I'm not doing it to hurt you. I know. I sent them. I don't know everything that happened in Derek's house after that. I know he stopped texting me directly. I know Lauren removed several family photos from her social media. I know Derek's brewery weekends disappeared for a while. Renee deleted her post, then replaced it with one about taking the high road when misunderstood. Fewer people commented on that one. I heard through a cousin that she was furious Mom had made decisions under Nora's influence, but she never contacted Anthony. People like Renee love public pressure. Legal paperwork is less fun. Calvin sent me a long message a week later. He apologized for not showing up, for hiding behind Derek, for wanting a share of something he had not helped protect. It was the best apology he had ever given me. I read it 3 times. Then I replied, "Thank you for saying that. I'm not ready for a relationship right now. Please respect that." He wrote back, "I will." To his credit, he did. Derek didn't. 3 weeks after the meeting, he sent one final message from a new number. "You'll regret choosing a house over family." I stared at it while standing in Mom's kitchen, where the wallpaper near the stove had started peeling at the corner. Then I wrote the last message I ever sent him. I did not choose a house over family. I chose peace over people who treated Mom's illness like an inconvenience and her home like a payout. Do not contact me again directly. Any legal communication can go through Anthony. Then I blocked the number. After that, the house became quiet in a new way. At first, the quiet was awful. I heard Mom everywhere. The recliner creaked even when no one sat in it. The hallway floor squeaked under my own feet and made me expect her voice. I kept buying her tea by accident. Once I stood in the pharmacy aisle for 10 minutes before remembering I didn't need to pick up her prescriptions anymore. Grief made ordinary things strange. But slowly, the house started becoming a place where I could breathe. I kept Mom's favorite chair in the living room, but I moved it closer to the window. I cleaned out the medical supplies from the hall closet and donated what I could. I took down the medication schedule from inside the kitchen cabinet and stood there with the tape in my hand, crying over a piece of paper full of times and dosages. Mrs. Alvarez brought over soup again, even though I told her she didn't have to. Beth helped me repaint the kitchen a soft green because Mom had talked about doing it for years but never had the energy. We wore old t-shirts, ordered pizza, and got paint on the floor despite taping everything badly. Halfway through the second wall, Beth said, "Your mom had good taste." I looked at the color drying in the afternoon light. She did. I turned Mom's sewing room into a small office. I kept her sewing machine near the window, covered with the cloth she used to protect it from dust. My desk went against the opposite wall. For the first time in years, I had a place to work from home that wasn't squeezed between pill bottles and insurance forms. In November, the furnace rattled again. The first time it kicked on, I stood in the hallway and laughed. It sounded exactly as awful as it always had. I made coffee and took it to the back porch, wrapped in one of Mom's old cardigans. The air smelled like damp leaves. Somewhere nearby, a lawnmower started even though it was too late in the season. A dog barked 2 houses down. Mom's wind chimes moved lightly in the cold breeze. The house still remembered. It remembered her coffee cup on the porch rail. It remembered hospital bracelets and grocery bags and late-night worry. It remembered Derek's voice calling it an asset, Renee's polished guilt, Calvin's silence. But it remembered other things too. Mrs. Alvarez crossing the street with soup. Beth sitting in the driveway with her phone ready. Mom signing her name slowly but clearly. Mom choosing me when I was too exhausted to choose myself. I didn't keep the house as a trophy. I kept it because it had been entrusted to me, not just as property, but as proof that love without action is just noise. Some mornings still hurt. Some rooms still catch me off guard. But now, when I sit on the back porch with my coffee, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the next demand, the next accusation, the next family emergency disguised as obligation. I hear the furnace rattle. I hear the wind chimes. And for the first time in years, I stay seated long enough to finish my coffee while it's still warm. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.